Okay, we are live at 7:01. I will open tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Health, Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. And all town facilities are open during limited hours, and most meetings with officials at town hall can be done by appointment. In accordance with the governor's office order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live through the local access channel on Facebook Live on the public access Facebook page, and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours of its conclusion. If you wish to join this meeting remotely using a computer, tablet, smartphone, or any other smart device, please use the Zoom application. And the webinar ID for this meeting is 909-174-0347. If you do not have a smart device available to you or are not near one, you can join by phone by dialing 888-475-4499. Again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. In order to participate in this meeting, if you are online with the Zoom application, please acquaint yourself with the raise your hand feature. When people raise their hand, I will see it and will call them at the appropriate time. If you are on the phone, the way you raise your hand for phone dialers is by pressing *9. That will raise your hand. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order by roll call here. Ms. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Marino.
Here.
Mr. Jeffries.
Present.
Mr. Dwyer.
Here.
I am the chair. I am present. And Madam Town Manager.
Here.
Okay. So we will do the pledge here, and I will hand it over to Ms. Adams with her handy flag. And if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll open tonight and ask if anybody has any public comment from the board this evening. Hearing none. Any public comment from the public this evening? Mr. Bowen, hold on while I unmute you.
Good evening. Just very briefly, I wanted to compliment the town manager. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and recently the Chamber held a session for how local communities are dealing with COVID, and she acquitted herself very well, and I just thought I'd let the board know that she did a great job for the town.
And we appreciate you sharing that information and sharing your experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Heather. Mr. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Greg Roy, and I live at 105 Chestnut Street. I'm here tonight representing the TCP Building Design Committee. I just wanted to make a brief remark. I wanted to use this forum to advertise that we have some upcoming meetings of the committee, and those dates are August 31st, September 10th, and September 21st. Those are the ones we have scheduled for now. Those meetings are at 6 o'clock. They'll be via Zoom, same format as this board. And I wanted to just say briefly that we, as a committee, are interested in hearing any and all voices on this. All people in town, particularly if you're an organization in town that has some interest in this project, But really anybody in town, we want to make sure that we are inviting those voices to be heard at those meetings. So we have a website presence on the town's website. If you go to the boards and commissions tab and you scroll down to TCP Building Design Committee, all of the committee members' emails are on there, but particularly mine. I welcome any correspondence from folks prior to the meeting, anytime. And also I would love to hear from you in attendance at one of those meetings. So that's all. I just wanted to get some time, not only before your board, but also before the community at large. Thanks for your time this evening.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Roy. Okay. Any other public comment from the public? So 7:05, public hearing. Any announcements? Madam Town Manager, do you have any announcements?
No, I do not.
Okay. So at 7:05, public hearing for an application to transfer an all alcohol on-premise license to Embers Lounge and Restaurant LLC, doing business as Embers Pizzeria, 84 Lakefront Street, and a temporary extension of premises to 55 by 20 feet through November 1st, 2020, and a common victualler license for Embers Lounge and Restaurant LLC. As this is a hearing, I will have to read the hearing notice. The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. on the application submitted by Embers Lounge and Restaurant LLC, doing business as Embers Pizzeria, for the transfer of an all alcoholic beverages general on-premises license located at 84 Lakefront Street, Lunenburg, Mass. The premises is described as a one-story wood frame building with 2 entrances and exit, containing a lounge, dining room, kitchen, outdoor storage room, and a 640 square foot outdoor dining area. The following information is also provided for members of the public who'd like to participate, and that is all the Zoom information that I gave at the opening of this meeting. And that was submitted by myself, Tom Milazzo, Chair, Board of Selectmen of the Lunenburg Licensing Authority. Madam Town Manager, would you like to introduce the applicants or the people involved in this transaction, please?
Mr. Ricker is the current owner, and he's transferring it to, I'm sorry, I have to pull up the
Zaris's, right?
Zaris's, correct.
And I will unmute both of them. There we go. Is anybody else on this call involved directly with this transaction, or just Mr. Ricker and the Zaris's?
It should be just the 2 of us, Tom.
Okay, thank you. All right, so either I'll start with the transferor or the transferee. Just give us a recap of what you're asking.
I'm just selling the property and the business to Jim and Margot Exaris, and we're here tonight for the transfer.
Okay. So to all the board members, you should have all the documents having to do with this. We have the purchase and sale agreement. We have the licensing authority certification form, the lease agreement, the current Embers employee alcohol service training program, and the alcohol license transfer application. So we have all of that. To the Zaris's, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what your plans are for, if they are different than the current establishment, what your plans for the pizzeria, the current pizzeria, are?
Intend to purchase the property and maintain the current operation. There'll be very little change.
Okay. Anybody from the board have any questions for either Mr. Ricker or the Zaris's?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffries.
Can you explain, and this is to the Zarises, can you explain your experience working in the restaurant industry and serving alcohol?
I own a number of facilities that house restaurants and serve alcohol, some in Florida, some in Massachusetts.
Okay. And has it been an occasion in which you had a violation for your alcohol license, in which, selling to a underage person, or you had to go to before a licensing authority related to the license and the improper sale of alcohol?
Never.
And how long have you been in the industry?
26 years.
And what is the alcohol policy that I see that we have a policy in the packet that was provided? I'm sure Mr. Ricker primed you a little bit and said you're probably gonna have some questions on this. Are you also planning on implementing the same policy, or are you bringing a new policy?
We intend to change nothing. The same employees will remain, same policies remain. Nothing will change, except Margo will become the manager, Kenny will step down, and we will own the facility.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chair.
Madam Town Manager, have all the proper checks on this application been completed?
Yes, everything is in order.
Okay, and they have paid for the application, everything is set?
Yes.
Okay. If there are no other questions from anybody about this, I would entertain a motion regarding, now this, we're putting three things together. So is this hearing for all three, or is this just for the license? Because they're talking about a temporary extension of the premises and then a common vic. Is this all in this public hearing?
You're required to have a public hearing for the transfer of the liquor license,
right?
Not for the others. So it can be part of the motion as well, unless you want to separate it out.
Well, before we separate it out, so the common vic license, I'm assuming that's to transfer it as well. So I don't think we need an explanation of that. That would be clear. When it talks about the temporary extension of the premises, is that, do they have one in place for the November 1st? Is that what we granted before? And they're just looking for that?
That's already granted. You already ran all through.
So this is just, all these three are just transferring the ownership of those licenses and agreements to the Zarises.
Correct.
Okay, good. All right. So then I just wanted to make that clear for myself and everybody here. So then I would entertain a motion regarding these three transfers.
I'll make a motion that we support the transfers.
I'll second that.
Okay, and just to be clear, we are supporting the transfers of the all alcohol on-premise liquor license, the common victualler license, and the temporary extension of premises to 55 feet by 20 feet for the outdoor seating. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Marino?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries?
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Okay, good luck, everyone, with the new ownership. And when can they pick up, when will these transfer licenses be ready for them?
They should be available by tomorrow.
Okay, by tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay. 7:15, right on the money. Look at this. Earth removal. This never happens, by the way, which should be a celebratory moment. Earth removal permit renewals. We have two applicants for renewals. We have the PJ Keating Company, permits number 15, 16, 17, 27, 30, and 57. And Dan and Jean Proctor at 1325 Mass Ave, permit number 60. We have our building inspector here, Casey Burlingame, who I am going to unmute. Is Mr. Bernie going to join us or no tonight, Madam Town Manager?
No. He had announced at the August 4th meeting that I wasn't able to attend this meeting.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He did. Okay. So we have these in our Google Drive. Again, we have all the documentation from the building commissioner on the two applicants, we also have reports from Mr. Burney on them. We have the applications themselves. And we have an additional letter, an addendum letter from the Keatings that talked about, I believe, let me just verify what that was. They had been asked at a previous hearing. Please wait while it downloads for me here. They requested a plan of earth removal activities that may potentially occur on parcel 142-4, which is part of permit 16. They have provided those documents to us. So the building commissioner is the one whose responsibility it is to make sure that all these permits are being run, these operations are being run in accordance with any orders, special orders from the permit themselves. So, Mr. Burlingame, I will ask you to address both of these applicants, both PJ Keating and the Proctors. Is everything in order on all these permits?
Yes.
And you personally have inspected them and provided the reports that we are reading?
Yes, that is correct.
These permits would go for what, another year? Is this, we're doing another year one at this point?
That is correct.
Okay. So I do know that we did get some correspondence about the Proctor property. I believe you got some, Mr. Burlingame. So I'm going to ask you if those were addressed and were they did you respond to the submitter about their concerns?
I did. I went out to the site with Mr. Burney on the 11th of August. We did a site visit, and the main issue, I believe, was the berm in the rear, which has been done with the exception of the seeding, which hasn't been done yet due to time of year. The grass seed usually won't take in this time of year because it's too hot. But everything else has been done according to the special permit.
Okay. Do any of these applications, these renewal permits, there are 7 in total between the two applicants, is there anything that we need as the board to address, or is everything in order for your satisfaction that they are all following the order of conditions that were put on all of these locations?
After performing my site visits, it's my opinion that all of the permits can be renewed as is. There weren't any issues to be found.
I would open it up to the members of the board. If anybody has any specific questions, I see Mr. Proctor is here. I don't know, is there a representative from Keating here? I don't know. But I don't recognize any of the names as being that. Mr. Jeffries.
Yes. When we last discussed this, there was a note from the land use director with regard to Mr. Proctor's permit. And I did ask him at that time about the note referenced that they would recommend for the rear to require the rear berm to be completed by the end of November. I addressed that at the last meeting with Mr. Proctor. It seems as if that is going to happen naturally, and I don't think that we need to add in that requirement. I think it's going to occur within the next 30 days anyway.
Well, I think it's okay to put in the renewal that is acknowledged. So we're not going to add a condition. We're going to make sure that that's noted in this renewal, that the berm is going to be completed by that time. And let's get it from, potentially, if he wants to, get it from Mr. Proctor himself.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Proctor, yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, the seeding will be done probably within the next month. Like the building inspector said, August is a terrible time. It's so dry, nothing will grow. So I just want to do it once and make it look good and be done with it. Okay. So it'll be done before the end of September.
All right, well, we're going to leave in the November timeframe, and we will that'll be a stipulation in the approval, and Mr. Burlingame will go out and as a matter of course, as a matter of follow-up, just look at that. We have, oh, hold on, Ms. Adams. I'm going to go with the board members first. I see there's people in the public who want to speak, and I'll allow that, but we'll take Ms. Adams first.
Okay, sure. We're discussing these. Are we taking them one at a time, like with Keating's, or are we on the Proctor permit? Like I feel like we opened it up in a generic way, and I don't know if we're going to start getting specific, or if
if you want to talk specifically about a permit, we can do that. But I mean, it was if nobody had any objection, and just in the essence of saving time, I was going to approve them all, but we can take something out if you want.
Well, sure. I mean, mine are specifically with a question for the Proctor site. And I guess it's sort of the dynamic of our earth removal permitting being a piece of a larger pie. So my questions probably go to Casey in the sense that there's circumstances with this project that are in other jurisdictions, and the permitting's going through us. So I'm just wondering if the site has met everything that was in the site plan approval through planning board, such as the stormwater requirements, because I know it was in a sensitive area, and portions were going to be reseeded as it went along. And I don't know enough visually going by. It doesn't seem like any type of reseeding's occurring as it's being dug. And so I just wanted to know if you've gone through all of the conditions from the site plan approval, because our approval for the earth removal permit is just one piece of the pie on this active project.
Yes, I did do a site visit with Adam. The stormwater permit was done with the planning board, and as far as I could tell, everything on their agenda was done.
Okay, so like the reseeding of the open site, all those things, because it was highly specific, and a lot of it was for butter protection and dust issues.
Right.
And so like I said, I can only see it from my eye, and it looks like a lot's been removed, but none has been restored.
Right. I mean, it's still an active site. They haven't seeded it, a lot of the areas, because they're not finished grading yet. And like I said earlier, the seed really wouldn't take this time of year. I think it would be futile on Mr. Proctor's part to seed it. I think it would just wash away in the next rain, which is why I recommended the November timeline.
Okay. Did you, well, I'm not sure there's a lot of footage for this, and I'm really just sort of voicing, the mindset of the 4 residential abutters at the time. But for example, it was said that there would be mining for 20 days and then a restoration period. And so some of the things that were assigned to this project to reflect the fact that it was on a small lot with 4 residential abutters, it doesn't seem like that's happened. And I'm not sure if there's anybody here for the hearing portion tonight, who, but at the same time, I do think a lot of time, both through conservation planning and then fairly quickly through us, but a lot of time was paid to finding compromise with the abutters, and I'm not sure that that's really happened.
I would intercede here. You've asked him directly, the building commissioner. I've asked him probably twice. In his professional opinion of going through the order of conditions for the site, does it pass his approval? And he said those times, 3 times, yes. I don't know what you're trying to get him to say. He's inspected it, and now you're questioning his inspection. Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm simply saying that although it meets his inspection, that I'm not necessarily sure that the conditions that were assigned are being met. That's sort of visually, the input that I would give is that there was to be sensitive to the erosion control and be sensitive to its location in the wetland protection area. There was specific attention paid to the idea of runoff and things, and the restoration. I'm not sure when the digging began. I know it was quite a while ago, but there hasn't been restoration, and that had a purpose, and the purpose was to be protective to the wetlands. So I'm just saying that I'm not so sure I agree. and I'm not sure where to take that concern, but I do feel it's my obligation to voice it from an environmental perspective.
Okay. Well, he is the enforcement officer of those order conditions from the planning board. Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping Mr. Proctor could address briefly what they're doing in areas of the site to keep dust down and things like that prior to when they're going to be able to seed areas to stabilize them, just for everybody's information.
So from day one, we talked about water trucks, which I have a water truck on the site. Also in the driveway, we use calcium flakes to keep the dust down in the vehicle traveling area. The seeding that was done to date, basically we stripped loam, we piled loam, we hydroseeded those piles to keep those piles from any type of erosion. I know that was one of the concerns from one of the planning board members. The detention basin has been formed so that when we do get rain, which obviously we have not received a lot, but if we do, the wetlands will be protected because of the drains that I've formed. Again, we just haven't loomed and seeded those drains, but they are in place and they do sediment, you know, take the sediment from whatever runoff we have at that time. So I have seeded certain sections. It's basically where I stripped the loam and piled the loam. We ended up, most of the loam we trucked off site because I really didn't want to screen on that site just because it has been so dry, even with water trucks. You know, it's pretty difficult to keep a screening operation from being dusty. So we really have not done a lot on that site other than access road, detention pond. To date, we're at like 2,900 yards of material that we've taken off the site, and probably 1,000 yards of that was the topsoil that we brought to another site to screen. So that we'll have that to bring back come September.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I will open this up. Mr. Bowen, are you representing somebody or are you just representing the public here?
I am representing Mr. Proctor on this, and I just have a legal observation. I believe that your permit that you're issuing already states that it's subject to the applicant meeting the conditions of other boards, including the planning board. So from a legal perspective, I appreciate the concern, but I don't think you technically need to repeat the conditions that already exist on the other boards because of the way your permit is already written.
And I would concur. So, Ms. Anzaldi. Hold on, let me unmute you first. This is the unmute game. There we go.
I have a question about the berm. The right side of the berm, which was just put up to the telephone pole, seems to be at the appropriate height that was discussed at the site plan review. However, the left side, which is closest to our property, is still at about 3.5 feet. And I'm wondering if Mr. Proctor is planning on bringing that up to the level that was agreed to.
Yes, I certainly will. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I know how to read a plan. I know how to read a transit stick. It's within probably an inch. So I'll be bringing in 3 to 4 inches of loom to put on top of it, but it will be according to plan.
And that will bring it to what height?
The height that shows on the plan, which is 4 feet above original grade.
I believe we agreed to 4 to 6 feet.
That's correct. So if you look at the plan, it starts at 4 feet on the high side. And then because the grade goes away down the hill, till then it ends up the top of the berm is 6 feet high at that end because there's a 2-foot elevational difference from the top end of the property to the low end. So 4 foot is what the height it shows on the plan at the beginning on that the top corner by the Erskines. And then it's 6 foot high down by the telephone pole. So that's the 4 to 6 foot.
Yeah, this is Clifford Smith, Pam's husband. At a number of occasions, Dan Proctor and I have agreed to the 6 foot to 150 feet in length, which takes us to the telephone pole. You agreed to that at a meeting in April. You agreed to it, you and I, when we walked the property. And then we agreed again in May when it was supposed to be 6 feet. A 4-foot berm does absolutely nothing. Tear it down and don't bother. You're wasting your time at 4 feet. There is no issue that it doesn't do anything. I originally said I wanted 8 to 10. If you look at the numbers back in March, and I said that's not realistic. And it was brought up that they be suggested 4 feet. I said, let's settle on 6 to the telephone pole. And you agreed because you interrupted your engineer and you told him you knew the distance to the telephone pole and you agreed to it. And now we're getting a different story. All we have to do is go to the video and watch it. It's all right there.
Well, the plan, what was eventually approved by the planning board is what he has to go by specifically. So again, I would ask the building commissioner, according to the plans that were agreed to by the planning board, not this board, but the planning board, has Mr. Proctor met those grades? He's already admitted that it's like four inches short on the beginning side, but everything else, is it in order to that plan?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries.
I think you just answered my question, but within this process, how much are we reviewing of other elected boards?
We're not.
Decisions?
That's not what's up for grab.
Okay.
We have a building commissioner whose job is to oversee each of these sites, that they meet the order of conditions that were placed on them. We are not here to relitigate the planning board's decisions and the plans they approved. If they meet the order of conditions to the satisfaction of the building commissioner, that's all we should be concerned about, which it seems and has been asked several times they have.
Are you willing to entertain a motion at this time, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as presented permit number 15, 16, 17, 27, 30, and 57 as requested by PJ Keating, and permit number 60 as requested by Dan and Jean Proctor, with the stipulation that permit number 60 has its rear berm completed no later than the end of November 2020.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, technically, I think you're supposed to close the public hearing before we make motions.
Well, this is not a public hearing.
It was not, okay.
No. So, all those in favor of the motion, Ms. Adams?
My mind's still in further discussion, so if you'll just give me a moment.
Mr. Marino?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries? Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
An aye from me. Ms. Adams?
I feel like I have more questions. I'm just going to go with a fact that I don't like that we're doing Keating's separate from, I feel funny that we're lumping all the permitting together. It just feels like a strange way to approve them.
Do you have an objection to one that you want to take out? Not that it's going to matter. It's 4-1 already. So even if you voted no, it would be fine. But if you want to take a separate vote.
It's just very different than we've done them in the past. We went through, they obviously had an opportunity to potentially speak, someone from Keating's here, but we usually did them as a group from, from each company or each applicant. We'd go through.
If nobody has an objection, what difference does it make if we do?
Well, I'm just saying it's hard to answer a motion when so many things are put together. But if it makes it easier, I'll just say no. But I certainly am not against Keating, so I don't think that's fair that I can't say yes to those. It's just a bizarre way to make a motion. It's a lot cleaner to separate them because then people could participate specifically on them. I have no way to easily answer this because of course I'm a yes for Keatings and I had a little bit further discussion or thoughts on another one. So I'm just having a hard time voting, which should be understandable.
Yeah, I asked if you wanted to separate them and yet you didn't say anything.
I would love to, but somebody has to redo the motion. I can't.
Mr. Jeffries, would you re-separate the motion?
No, I think that we've just voted 4-1 to approve them all.
Yeah, I think it's foregone anyway, to be very honest. So,
but I don't want to cast a no vote to Keatings, and that's why I'm saying this is an unfair way to do a motion. In my opinion, it's a lot more ethical and clean to separate the permits. I've never seen permitting voted on for multiple people at one time, whether it's a restaurant or otherwise. It's just a very messy way to make a motion.
It's not a messy way, and it's been done like this other times in the past too. If Mr. Jeffries is not willing to separate the motion and already we have 4 aye votes, you can choose to vote in any way you would like. But
then I'm going to go with a no, and my apologies to Keatings. I think that's a poor way to do it.
Okay. Thank you all for joining. When can those get picked up by the applicants?
I'd assume those should be ready tomorrow as well.
Okay.
Call.
Thank you. Interviews and appointments, reappointments. So we have somebody who's interested in being a fence viewer. I don't know. I don't see the applicant here, Mr. Timothy Wilsmer of 762 Northfield Road. He submitted a talent bank form.
Yes. If possible, I have some further questions on the responsibilities of this I'd like to talk to council with.
Okay. And it's customary that somebody who the board is not familiar with, that they would appear even in a Zoom meeting so we can ask questions and they can introduce themselves. So let's reschedule this if we can find out when Mr. Wilsmer is available.
Okay, thank you.
Current business, we have the Animal Control Officer's quarterly report. Does anybody have any questions about this report? Hearing none, I will accept the report and thank the Animal Control Officer and the Police Department for providing the report and providing it. It's very good that we get these quarterly, so I'm very glad that we're doing this. Discussion on holding public meetings at other buildings. Ms. Adams, I believe this was on this at your request, so I will let you open up the discussion.
Sure. I think it's a good time to have the discussion in the sense that we've sort of been removed from our public buildings and reflect that access and communication in an entirely different way. So I think it's a good time to revisit this. I've brought it up for the last few years in typical fashion. It's one of my spinning wheels, but I don't understand why we don't take action. There's a lot of, with ADA compliance, there's a lot of effort put into improving things over the long term, which are often capital items. You know, whether it's improving, you know, the handicap ramp or, you know, adding a more accessible front door, improving parking, curbs. And Heather certainly does a lot of it with, you know, looking at sidewalks and buildings and the whole, you know, global ability of people to access. And one thing that came up years ago, because the second floor of Town Hall is an extremely complicated space, there's something a little bit wrong with the rise and run of the front staircase that makes, I think, almost anybody walking up it feel like they're tipping back a little bit. The lift leaves a lot to be desired. But then there's other things like extension cords run across the floor that, you know, are tripping hazards to just about anybody. And so quite a while back, while it will be quite some time before we have an improved town hall, whether it's restoring a historic one or rehabbing TCP or building a new one, all of these things are quite a ways away and may continue to be voted down. We could come up with a dream plan of a $20 million town hall or renovation. And if it's not voted in the yes, we're left with what we have. And so a while back, I posed the concept of us meeting as a board and potentially other boards and committees meeting in a space we already own. So for example, there's the large room at the Eagle House that is empty. We have conducted daytime meetings there, or the board has in the past before I was with them. These other meeting rooms might be on a first floor. They might be in buildings with push button door opens. They might be in places with better parking, better bathrooms, no extension cords. So the Eagle House is one example. The library has community rooms that are really heavily used, so I don't see that as a good option. And then we have, as a board, done meeting in the collaborative rooms in the front end of this high school. The school committee meets in there. But just as an example, the room at the Eagle House, I think there's spaces where we could come together once we can come together that are more accessible without spending any tax money. The only hurdle is the technology aspect, or at least that was the hurdle I was presented with back when I asked this as a citizen, is putting the right recording equipment. And that was the hurdle. Well, here we are not using town hall and we're still all recorded and meeting. And so I think we can adapt the technology to a new space and create better access for people to come to our meetings. I think it's time to look for an alternative to the second floor of town hall, and we have them. And I just was hoping we could consider meeting someplace else for the purpose of improved ADA compliance.
Mr. Jeffries.
You know, when we talked about this last year, I just want to restate some of the concerns that I brought up then. I understand the ADA part that Ms. Adams is referencing here, but I think that we have a problem, and I don't mean to sound repetitious as I say this, because I believe I said this before, that we have a problem in this that we're recognizing here, that the space that we have designated for public meetings is no longer working for our community. And that then means that we now need to solve that problem. You know, in our own experiences going to other towns and communities, you know, they don't have this town hall A and B and C like we do here in Lunenburg. And I think that the more time that goes on, it becomes a stain on us as a community that the spaces that we have designated, not just for the public, but for our staff, that the majority of our staff are working in buildings that aren't working for them. And we know this. And I don't think the answer is to have Town Hall A and Ritter Town Hall B and PAC and other committees and TCP Town Hall C, and then have a meeting space and some other building Town Hall D. I think we need to have Town Hall that works. So, you know, I'm not in favor of moving. First, I don't, you know, we're not meeting. So there's a part of this that's a little, to me, premature, but I'm not in favor of us taking the public away from the working conditions of our staff, which in my opinion is poor. I'm not in favor of us taking the public away from the fact that we do not have a working town hall in the sense of the historical definition of what a town hall is supposed to be. We don't have that. So I understand that we need a space that's going to work better. And that's all the more for why we need to come together as a community and get that space. Just as we've had since the creation of our town up until about 20 years ago, we've always had a designated space for the community to come together. And as our town has grown, as buildings have aged, we've lost it. So I'm not in favor of Band-Aids. I'm not in favor of confusing the public anymore. They're already confused on where to go when they need to access their government.
Ms. Adams.
I really didn't want to make this an issue about town hall because, like I said, regardless of what the future holds, it's all a long ways away. And if you follow the ADA compliance laws, we're legally obligated to improve compliance to accessibility. And as we currently exist, the second floor of town hall gives a variety of complications, like I said, the extension cords and things, and other spaces do not. We can't solve a problem if we constantly try to look at it as a gigantic outcome. This was just one thing. I had gone to an ADA meeting a couple summers ago in Leominster just as a guest, and then, you know, am on the group in town, and just really looking at access and easy solutions, and meeting in a more accessible space that is vacant and available at the same time we're meeting in our complicated space. It doesn't mean that it's where we'll meet forever, but it's better than where we're meeting now. And the relevance to discussing it now, in terms of whether or not it's premature, right now, while we're meeting in this capacity, which could be a bit longer, we could prepare to meet someplace else. So if cameras need to be added to a different room and tested to see how we live broadcast from the Eagle House room, and there's equipment they can do live broadcast, et cetera. If there's something that we need to do to prepare, then it's better to think through it now. And it actually might be exciting to say, okay, we're going to be meeting, let's just say, I don't even want to say because it's like jinxing it, but we're meeting at such and such a date, and we're going to test out our new location at, you know, this. And I just think it's to solve a problem without spending money. And I see no reason to stand between a better space and us using it until there's other alternatives.
Mr. Marino and Mr. Dwyer, you are both new to this conversation. Do you have anything you want to discuss about this request?
I don't really have much to say about it. I'll just be glad when we can meet in person. I don't care where it is at this point. But I get it. I get what you're talking about.
Mr. Dwyer.
I completely understand where Ms. Adams is coming from in terms of wanting a space that has a good ADA access. I mean, that's commendable. But you know, no space is perfect. And I think the town's working towards developing some sort of solution with the TC Passios Design Committee. So I think we just let them do their work. And until then, I think we can discuss it till we're blue in the face, but it's not going to get us anywhere.
I will say for myself, having been through these discussions, I'm not in favor of this because each one of first of all, there are some buildings that were being proposed that are not in the control of the Board of Selectmen. They're in control of the school committee, and the school, although this year is not a good example, the school is a very active location, and if it means that we don't get that meeting room every time, which I'm sure there will be times when we won't because of school activities, I don't want to move around meetings, and we don't have that under our control. That's under the school committee. Yeah, you know, Eagle House or the library, they have their own purposes. I mean, it was already noted that the library is a very active place as well. So we wouldn't be able to get that probably most of the time, not even on a regular basis. And the Eagle House has activities, and we would have to rearrange the room, and PAC would have to set up cameras, run electric every time, take it down, and somebody would have to come in and set up the room each time and put it back the way it was so they could have their programs the next day. So right now, I mean, is town hall currently the optimal solution? No. I mean, that's what we're looking at, other solutions. But I think it's the best we have. It accommodates to everybody the best we can. As far as loose cables and extension cords, I think, Madam Town Manager, we should look at making sure that we get the right rubber guards to put on the floor so they're not strewn everywhere. That's easy enough to resolve. But other than that, I'm not in favor of moving them for the same reasons I wasn't last year. Ms. Adams.
Yes, because of her experience and following this topic along quite closely, I'd like to hear from Heather on ADA compliance. And I know the meeting we attended together in Leominster, the legal obligation to look for solutions and improvement. And if we have opportunities to improve accessibility, is there anything reliable for if somebody files a complaint?
Well, we would have to receive a complaint and then follow up on into looking into it and to see if we are in violation. But the reason we're doing the self-assessment and transition plan that MRPC is working on is to look at all our facilities and properties to make sure we're in compliance. And then we put together a plan on how we address those things that are not in compliance.
Mr. Marino.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that I share your concerns. Katie, I don't think I said it right. This whole platform with respect to Zoom and GoToMeeting and all that is just really troublesome to me. And but I just want you to be assured that I do share your concerns with respect to all the issues you brought up. That's all.
Ms. Adams.
Sure. I just want to say, and I know I always feel like, thank you, Jim, there's always a tsunami of negativity, and it's associated with a lot of the building plans and everybody getting stuck in the ruts. There was one night where I was entering town hall and I saw somebody going up the ramp in their wheelchair. And I noticed all of the first floor lights were out. Nobody was home on the first floor, completely dark. And I knew that's where this citizen would be entering. So I walked through the first floor hallway, started turning on lights, and there were circumstances by the lift where they weren't able to open the door in such a direction that they could get in the lift. And I very quietly helped them, introduced myself, and then when it wasn't a BOS meeting, so I was there sort of probably as a citizen. And then when I noticed that they were getting ready to leave, I very quietly, went to go make sure that they were able to exit. And I thank them for letting me sort of witness how much it doesn't work. And I just can't believe that because everybody thinks we're stuck in these same old arguments about the stupid buildings, excuse my language, that we're not looking for easy, free solutions to people's problems. There are many vacant spaces, and I know the school's complex and the library's busy, which is why I brought as a primary point, and I already asked, usually at night, that room is not used. And we have met there during the day. I'll volunteer to go arrange the chairs. I'll go early. I'll bring my kids. We'll line them up. It's just, there's buildings where you can press a button and a door opens. Watching somebody not be able to get in a door is not something we should do. And we should not relate it to our political beliefs on what we think should become town hall. And it just, it's flabbergasts me that we can't try to meet someplace else where we've identified that the second floor of town hall has all these reasons we shouldn't be using it. But because we have agendas, we won't think outside of the box and solve a problem for free. It's just, yeah, maybe other communities have better spaces and better town halls. Well, the town hall that's being worked on for TCP is probably going to cost $15 to $20 million. And if we look at what's going to happen to the economy, these things may never happen, may not be able to happen. We may not be able to afford them, but we can meet in an accessible building for free when we go back to meeting in person. And I can't believe that we have to, it's evidenced by the fact that the other selectmen are quoting things to do with TC Passios. That may never happen because the plan may be voted down at town meeting and we're all stuck in the second floor of town hall. I just think it's time to stop fighting about the big picture and solve a problem. And that's, I can't believe this is getting tied into where town hall will be in the future when we could test out and try to solve a problem together. So, I mean, thank you for acknowledging it, Jim, but I'm just locked into this, these personalities that are stuck on the town building issue, and we're not even solving little teeny tiny free issues that would make gigantic impacts on people's lives.
Madam Town Manager, did you have your hand up that I accidentally put down, or Mr. Jeffries?
Did not.
I did.
Okay.
I've mentioned before, and I don't talk about it too much, but I am a disabled veteran. And, my time in service in a war zone resulted in me having neurological damage in my legs. So I worry that there will be a time in which, like my father, who couldn't make it to the second floor of town hall, that I too may be at that point one day as well, from things I've been exposed to while in service to our nation. part of ADA is the dignity of walking through the front door. And, you know, and the beauty of democracy is that reasonable people can disagree. And why we have 5-member, odd-member boards is with the understanding that people can have viewpoints and not necessarily come to the same conclusion. But together, we can move in the right direction. I agree, Selectman Adams, with the problem, with identifying that we have a problem. And we do. We do have a problem. And you know, but I reject the idea that we have agendas, that there's political views. I also want to clarify, as a member of the TCP Design Committee, that another member asked about cost last night at the meeting. And to be very clear, there are 0 cost estimates that have been presented or proposed to the TCP Design Committee. So I don't think it's reasonable to say $15 to $20 million, because that is not something that has even been discussed. There's still being structural analysis of what can occur in the TCP design within the committee, structural analysis of the building. It is not at the phase yet where there is a serious plan that's in front of the community in terms of how exactly the space is going to be used. In fact, last night we spent about 2 hours just discussing different options, and as Mr. Roy mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, inviting the community to come and participate in that process. But I agree that we have a problem here that needs to be resolved. But I reject this idea that Town Hall D is somehow going to solve our problems. It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. You know, we have to address the underlying issue here. And I don't know right now if anyone is trying to leave their house to go to a town meeting. I mean, you know, I'm probably adding to the length of this discussion, so let me shut up. But you know, we've been talking about this for 15 minutes or more, and we don't have a meeting in front of one another in the next 30 days. You know, I mean,
is anybody wanting to make a motion on this, or?
Well, my virtual hand's raised, so maybe.
I see, but you know what? As chair, it's not like it's not like you haven't had your time to speak. If I don't want to keep going round and round in circles here. So go ahead.
Sure. First, what I wanted to say in terms of when I put out figures, I did get heavily involved in researching all the past things like the TAPE. It assigned prices back in 2015 and prorated amounts and things. And so having been invested in this topic for so long and understanding a lot of the jargon of it, I use these figures from different analyses in the past. They're obviously estimates, and that's why we've charged the TCP BDC with coming up with a price, not really a plan. But I would like to make a motion that when we return to meeting in person, we do so at the community room inside the Eagle House with the objective to improve accessibility.
Anybody willing to second that?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? I hesitate to say further discussion because I think we've heard everybody's discussions. Does anybody have anything new they want to add to this?
Could I say something?
Madam Town Manager.
Yeah, thank you. This hasn't been discussed with the Council on Aging, so would like their input if that's the location that is being suggested. Right now, they're planning months out of programming where it's very limited and bringing a limited number of people into that building and maintaining the safety of the seniors that are coming into that building by sanitizing and all the proper methods to keep them safe. So I would like their input if that's the location.
And I think, we're obviously all discussing this for when we return to, living, but I respect that because you are charged with the care of these buildings. Yes. I mean, yes. Your jurisdiction, not theirs, but getting their input would definitely make sense. But right now where we're not meeting anyways, I'm not intending to bring, microbes to them. I just think that, this is a plan that I've had in mind for 3 years. And if you can think of another vacant space, I just think it's I don't know, it's just something, I think it's a problem where we could find a solution, and it's frustrating that it becomes argumentative.
I'm extremely concerned about the suggestion of bringing the general public into a building where seniors are dying of this virus at an alarming rate. It is affecting them far more than it's affecting everybody else. I encourage my other members, my fellow members, to vote no.
So 2 things. First of all, I wanted to make a motion to amend the initial motion that any decision we make on this, if it is in the affirmative, that it would go through the Council on Aging, and this is just a suggestion or intent that this is what the Board of Selectmen would want, and it's obviously not an edict, so we would have to involve them and get their approval, number one. So I would enter that as an amendment to the motion.
Sure, I'll amend my motion, and I will say that I make a motion that we, through the help of our town manager, find a more accessible meeting space that has better accessibility.
Well, first, Jim, do you unsecond your, do you remove your second from the original motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a new motion. And again, if you would repeat it, Ms. Adams.
My motion is that through the help of Heather, since she is charged with the care of the buildings, that she works with the possible locations in town to find a more accessible place for us to hold our meetings when we resume.
Do I have a second to that?
I'm sorry. I was going to say, is there discussion on that, or you got a second? I'll second it if there's discussion.
Okay, so that's a difference. So now it's just an intent. Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the change in motion, I suggest that Madam Town Manager just move forward with an investigation if there's a suitable location. And then if she identifies one at that time, we take a vote on whether or not we want to entertain moving our meetings to that location.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Marino.
Actually, Todd said exactly what I was going to say, but I would add to that. Just a comment that the Eagle House, that the meeting room at the Eagle House, I don't think is as big as it looks. And of course, I know this is kind of like pie in the sky anyway, because as the town manager said, we're still fighting the whole COVID issue. So we have to be very, very sensitive to that as well. And so I agree with what Todd said. If there is such a location, we should investigate that.
So, Madam Town Manager, do you need a vote of this board to perform that job? Is that what you would like, or would you? I mean, again, I don't even know. We're not giving her any guidance except, what is the criteria? We'd have to meet with, PAC to see what their, what their concerns are for anything. We'd have to know what the seating capacity it is, what the permanence of the location is, and these are all the reasons. Again, I would like there to be a fully ADA compliant arena with, as anybody else. But I mean, with what we have to work with, I don't think that any place we go is any better in every regard than what we have now. There are better and worse pros and cons of everything, and nothing's going to cure all of this. So, Madam Town Manager, did you need a vote of this board to do that?
If the majority of the board would like me to look into it, I will do that.
No, I'm not interested. So, I mean, I think we've talked about this. I've heard about this for 3 years in a row now. I mean, at some point, and we seem to be moving in a different direction. So I'm not in favor of asking the town manager to do that.
And I mean, personally, I think we've done, the town manager has a lot with all the stuff going on now, and with the budget of fiscal year 22, which is definitely going to be abysmal. There's going to be a lot of stuff that needs to happen. And I think we've been through this exercise for the most part, maybe not for the town manager, but I don't know if anybody can point to a room. It's not like we have infinite sources of rooms and nobody checked under all the cupboards and everything. I mean, we have a finite number of buildings and a finite number of places we can meet. And I don't know that any of them solves all our problems. You know, when you give away, if you make it ADA compliant, then you have problems broadcasting and you have problems set up and everything. And, you know, there's all these different trade-offs. So I personally am with Mr. Jeffries. I'm not in favor of having the town manager spin her wheels on something and divert her attention from things that I think are going to need her attention. Mr. Marino.
I agree with you that, yeah, we're really limited. There's no question about it. I'm sitting here trying to think of another place that we could meet that actually would work, that's big enough, square footage wise and so forth. And I honestly, at the top of my head, I can't. And as I said, I don't think the Eagle House is as big as what it looks like, having been there so many times with, you know, different events. And so I guess I can't disagree with you that right in Lunenburg that there probably isn't a better place. Unless somebody can come up with a suggestion, I'm all ears anyway.
I believe we've explored this before, in which we talked about different spots. You know, the Ritter building already has 2 meeting spaces. Technically, the Ritter building is ADA compliant, and technically so is Town Hall. It's just, it doesn't have the dignity of the front door, which is current architectural design. But the 2 meeting spaces in the Ritter building are smaller. The meeting space in the Eagle House, I think, has a lot of issues given the population that frequents there. That meeting room is also smaller. You know, I mean, TC Passios is something that we've talked about, and, you know, and that building certainly needs some work. And then everything else belongs to the schools. So, I mean, I don't know how much we really need to search for here. You know, we have a problem. We're using 3 buildings as like Town Hall, and none of them meet all of our needs, including this need to have a meeting space in which people can walk through the front door.
All right, so, can we, I think we've exercised all this. We have a motion to direct the town manager to look for alternative spaces, and we have a second. So I think we're at the place where we can vote on this.
Okay.
So, Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Nay.
Mr. Jeffries.
No.
And a no from me. So 3-2 or 2-3. It does not pass. Election warrant for 2020 state primary. Before we do on that, I see Mr. Delaney of PJ Keating. Are you still on here? Mr. Delaney? I'm trying to unmute you. You may be unmuted on your side if you are listening. I just want to make sure if he's here for the hearing to tell him that all of them were renewed. Okay, no response, and I can't unmute him. Okay, we'll go forward. Election warrant for 2020 state primary. We have from the town clerk or the warrant for the 2020 state primary from the Secretary of State, William Galvin. Everybody should see that. There is a primary on the first day of September 2020 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's no a.m., Madam Town Manager. It says 7 to 8. That looks very deceiving. Are we only voting for an hour, or are we voting for 13 hours?
Right, this should be redone.
But there are 7 seats: senator in Congress, representative in Congress for the 3rd district, councilor for the 7th district, senator in general court from Worcester and Middlesex district, representative in general court for the 37th Middlesex district, representative in general court for the 3rd Worcester District, and the Register of Probate for Worcester County. Those are the elected seats that are up in the primary. All we have to do is approve this. With that change, we have to, I guess we can approve it and just recommend, not recommend, but with that change in place. Does anybody have any questions about this warrant? No. I would entertain a motion regarding the election warrant for 2020 state primary.
I move to approve the warrant with the correction for the time to reflect 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Marino?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries?
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
And an aye from me. I will also take this opportunity to say that the town clerk has put on the town website instructions, because there are a multitude of different ways, given the pandemic, that voting is allowed. We have, different kinds of mail-in request voting, absentee voting, early voting, and then election day voting. So please, I cannot urge you strongly enough, go to the town website for the town clerk, look at all the methods available to you, all the deadlines that are there, so that somebody doesn't know. I don't want to get anybody in a position where they didn't know when they needed to send something in, when they needed to appear, if they could vote early, if they could vote by mail. Please read that document. And any questions you have, please contact the town clerk's office. And the further in advance of the primary or the election come November, the better. Minutes to approve. I don't think we have any. Warrants. There are none. I'm assuming I'm going to get a call from the finance director this week.
Yes.
Action items. Any action items from the board?
Mr. Chair, I thought we had minutes from June 9th to approve.
They just got sent to us today, so they'll be for a next meeting.
Okay.
Yep. Committee reports. Any committee reports?
Yes. I have a committee report.
Yes.
So first, I want to just remind those members of our community who are seniors that every Tuesday from 9 to 11 in the morning, that they can go and get drive-up coffee at the Eagle House. And on Thursdays from 12 to 1, they have brown bag lunches, and you can also drive up and get that as well. There are also coupons for seniors available at the Eagle House for the farmers market. So that way, if you is dependent upon income, so please refer to the recent mailing or the website for the Council of Aging, as it has the thresholds, income thresholds. But many people who are on retirement incomes may qualify for some of those coupons to use at our farmers market. And that is available only to residents of Lunenburg. If you are a resident of another community and for some reason are watching this meeting, please go to your own town hall. All right. Also, I want to give a community report on the TCP Design Committee. So we had a meeting last night in which we had another presentation from the engineering and architects that are working with the committee, engineering company and architect that's working with the committee to do the site evaluation of TC Pasio's building. So they conducted a digital scan of the interior and exterior of the building to help create a computer model that they can then be a little more exact with as they go through the next phases of planning, that they are currently going through a code review. And one thing that they noted last night was that depending on how much of the building, and again, there are no plans yet for exact plans for program space, but depending on how much of the building gets affected, specifically whether 50% of the building is substantially modified or not, that's going to result in additional or changing code requirements. So if less than 50% of the building has substantial modifications, it's called a level 2. If more than 50% has substantial modifications, it hits a level 3 coding requirement. and that comes with a little bit more stuff. Some of that in level 3 would require additional wind and seismic code compliance. That would be using steel to help attach the roof, for example, to the walls of the structure, which would come with an increased cost. About 33% of the brick exterior is going to need repointing. All architectural finishes with any final product, such as tile, lighting, fixtures, etc., those will need to get replaced. There will need to be substantial changes to electrical systems and fire safety systems. There is an environmental report that was presented on the site. It's 276 pages long. I haven't read all of it. It's very formula. And the highlights, which, 276 pages, there's really nothing there that's overwhelmingly concerning that we weren't already aware of. We're already on record as having asbestos. We're already aware that there was a prior oil spill a while ago that generated from that site. So it's a comprehensive report, but there's nothing too alarming that would affect, at this stage that we're aware of, affect future development plans for the site. And during that discussion, we also reviewed some program space, and it was the first meeting in which the architects pulled together after meeting with different town departments that are currently using Town Hall and the Ritter Building and the TC Pastos Building, as well as other organizations. But meeting with different personnel, they put together kind of an ideal for how much space is going to be needed for different offices, as well as for the after-school program that the plan that the committee is looking to also have in the building, as well as PAC. And based on those different program needs, at the meeting last night, we were kind of just looking at what could happen, just some options of what may be available. In response to that, the committee is asking for any member of the community who's part of an organization that would benefit from community space to please reach out to the TC Pastos Design Committee. Please come to a meeting on the 31st, the 10th, 31st of August, the 10th of September, or the 21st of September to vocalize what those needs are. One thing that the committee is really looking at is using spaces for multiple uses. And so it would be really helpful for the committee to get a better understanding of what those multiple needs are in the community. And we ended with a pretty robust discussion, I thought, on some of the community needs that we are aware of with Boys and Girls Club, with Grange organization, and some others. So, and that's it. So we have another meeting coming up on the 10th, and I will be sure to provide a committee report after that.
Thank you. Mr. Marino, you have your hand up.
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Jeffries. What is the end game with this committee? You plan on bringing something to town meeting this year, annual town meeting?
Yeah, so it's an advisory committee for this board. So they're going to need to come back to the Board of Selectmen to advise us on what the next steps are. And based on the charge, the charge as approved at town meeting, we talked about last week, is the consolidation of town offices, school uses, and community uses. The goal, they're progressing in a way that I know the target is this town meeting coming up this May. And the idea is to have a well-developed plan on what that consolidation of school uses and community uses could potentially look like, or what it could look like. So
if that happens, and if the town votes to accept your plan, how long is this project going to take?
So, based on my own training and experience, I would estimate that it's going to be about 2 years completed from this coming May, if approved.
2 years?
I would estimate that with the bidding, with the building, that we're somewhere with, in my opinion, 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay. The only reason I bring it up is because of the thought-provoking conversation we just had about really not having any viable space in town if we had to for an alternate meeting place. It just seems like this thing's been going on forever, and it really needs to get done. And I know you're working to try to make that happen, but it just seems like it can't be done quick enough. And this town hall, let me remind everybody that if you lived here as long as I have, you know that second floor has already been condemned once, and who knows when the next time that'll happen, because the building's pretty old. So whatever we can do to make that happen as quick as possible, I say we should do it.
I'll be sure to relay the sense of urgency, and I would also note that the committee feels a sense of urgency, and not having this be a lengthier process than it needs to be.
In the end, it's the town who's going to approve the project. So, okay, discussion about the creation of the Tricentennial Committee. Was there language? I believe, Ms. Adams, you were going to provide language for the creation of this committee, but I haven't seen any. Do you want to postpone this till the next meeting?
I'm prepared for the discussion because I wanted more input before. There were certain things I thought about, and as I shifted my understanding, for example, I imagined input from high school students, and yet the people who will be graduating in 10 years aren't the people who will participate now. And so basically having the group form this early, I wasn't sure if people saw, or if the board saw us forming a traditional group where you had mentioned the past group was 11 people. I thought through what would be 11 good places to draw from to create the group. And that creates like a very traditional group, and in which case, like I said, starting early is because I see the potential for capital items. Like if we move forward with working on a town green. Sorry, we have I get memos from the children when they have a question. Hold on just a moment. And so I guess in order to write it up and in order for us to actually create it, what I was lacking when I was thinking through it is input from the board. And so in order for it to work out, do other people, have a vision for it? So I'll first say, if we collected from a variety of places, I went through the website to look at all boards and committees. Please remove that. Sorry, we're getting, I'm sorry. There was an advantage to meeting in town hall, although it's nice to be home too. Sorry, that was very distracting. So if we put together a large group with long-term goals, I was thinking a member from the BOS, a member from the Historical Society, a member from the Historical Commission, a member from Parks, a member from School Committee, a member from AgCom, member from Planning Board, member from Capital Planning, and then 3 members at large. And I think it'd be interesting if we had at-large positions to encourage people who aren't on other boards and committees, because we end up with so much overlap. So that was that's 11 people. And like I said, I'd go through and look at the different boards and committees like cemetery and different things and say, oh, what would be the groups we'd want to get input for to create a very holistic 300th year celebration. And the goal to getting everybody together, maybe twice a year for the first couple of years, is if we see some sort of long-term vision or something that needs improvement or something we want to dedicate to the town, that we have enough time to realistically put something through town meeting and actually implement it and actually have it done. And I'm not talking gigantic things, just like I said, if it's something like a town green or a memorial or something like that.
So personally, I have no problem with what that composition of the committee is. That what you said is perfectly fine with me. I did, after our meeting last week, think that maybe 8 years is a little bit far out to form this committee, but I'm certainly willing to go along with it. So whoever we put on here, There's all those people, all those 11 people. I don't know that they'll last 8 years, all of them. You know, people move, people get disinterested, things happen. So I want their charge to be that find a way to celebrate our 300th anniversary. I don't want it to get too caught up in a capital project thing. I don't mind having a vision for one thing or something, but I don't want us to, you know, think that we have to build the Olympic Village for the Olympics in 8 years from now. So I just want to be clear about that. But otherwise, I'm fine with the building. We're going to, over the years, if the other 275th anniversary committee is any example, we'll dedicate some money. It's not a whole lot of money, but some money to the committee to, you know, get parades, firework displays, do certain things to commemorate during the 7-month season, I guess, that we have to celebrate, putting it at the spring to the fall. I'd open it up to the board if anybody has any comments to Ms. Adams. Mr. Dwyer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree with you. I think the committee will be necessary, but I think it's, you know, 4 or 5 years too early. We have a lot of things on our plate. I just think we're going to lose continuity if we try and establish a committee for a tricentennial celebration 8 years before it's going to happen.
Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, you know, Selectman Adams has been very passionate about this, and whenever this committee gets created, I certainly will support her being on it. She seems to have a lot of ideas and willingness to move this forward. You know, what I also am concerned that, you know, we have 12 current vacancies in town. You know, this would be asking members of existing committees and boards to set aside time for something that's not on the immediate horizon. I can think of other needs that the town has that maybe we might need those who are currently engaged to perhaps work on sooner, shorter target, such as how to get solar panels on the Old Town dump. But I'll follow the lead of the committee, but I also am inclined to think that we are at least 3 years too early on this.
I'm thinking 5 years is probably good as well. Again, unless somebody has a reason why I mean, what would they meet about? You couldn't even schedule anything it wouldn't take 5 years to put something like that together. That's my own opinion.
I would tend to agree with you. That's a long time. You're right. People lose interest. I've organized a lot of events, and you got to get into the moment.
Right. I think at 2023 would be the time to do this. That would be 5 years, and 5 years would be plenty of time to plan, I think. Again, I'm totally for the idea. I just think it's early, and I don't know what they would do for the next 3 years. I mean, I would seem that there seems to be a consensus, but I would, you know, again, if we need an official vote, it would seem like this, we need to revisit this in a few years.
So we put that in the form of a motion, maybe?
No, we don't. If nobody objects, we don't have to have a motion. So, I mean.
Okay.
All right. Discussion about reinstating liaison. So last week we decided that we would want to do that. And I asked everybody to come prepared for what committees they may want to liaise with. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's a word for this meeting. So I don't know how you want to do it. I mean, I guess we should discuss which boards, first of all, are the ones that we feel are, I mean, we don't have to have a liaison for every single elected and appointed body, but we should probably pick out the ones that, you know, we feel are either meet the most often, have the biggest impact, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't we start there? Why don't we make a list on the fly here of what committees and boards and commissions people think we should have a liaison for?
So the library previously asked for a liaison.
Okay, so let's just, you don't have to, we don't need explanations.
Council of Aging.
Council on Aging.
And Planning Board are the three that come to mind.
Okay, Planning Board. Okay.
I would add the school committee to that list.
Say again?
I would just add the school committee to that list.
School, yeah, I would say that's correct.
Finance committee?
Finance, that's what I would also say. Do we need what is that? Do we need one for Concom, do we think, or that's pretty?
You know, I just not speaking as a member of Concom, but I can say that the issues that the Concom deals with tend to be very site specific on the whole. So I don't know that we necessarily need one. However, since I'm a member of that committee for the near future, I'm happy to report if there is something that I think needs to be brought to this board's attention.
Here's an idea. We just by, unless anybody can come up with another body right now that we should cover, we have miraculously 5. We also miraculously have 5 members here. So I think that if everybody agreed to take one of these, now I think Mr. Jeffries, you're already on the library, right?
Library, and I work with Council of Aging too.
Okay, so we may ask you to, give up one unless somebody doesn't want one of these. I would offer that if anybody wants to cover those, so let's just say the library is taken. Of those two, of library and Council on Aging, Mr. Jeffries, which one would you definitely like to keep?
Both, but if I
of those two, which one would you definitely want to keep?
I'd say I'd eke Council of Aging ahead.
You would what?
I'd put Council of Aging a little ahead of the library.
Okay, so of library, planning board, school committee, and FinCom, Ms. Adams, you have a question.
Oh yeah, I was going to say some discussion came up last week on whether or not liaisons were allowed to participate or if we'd be discouraged from participating. So I remember my mindset after that discussion from, I believe, a citizen, that if liaising is seen as an opportunity to not participate, then I'm comfortable, if Michael wants to, because if I do attend things like school committee, I need to to retain the ability to be there as a citizen or a mother or whatever reason I'm at the meeting. So I don't know, before we pick liaisons, if we wanted to, go back to the conversation.
Sure, I can tell you my position on that. My position on that is the perfect liaison, of course, would never have to go to the meeting. They could watch it live because all they want to do is report on what is happening at the meeting. The more detached you are from that committee, the better the liaisoning, because then you're less likely to editorialize anybody, less likely to editorialize, less likely to want to be involved. If you really feel like this is a committee that you would presumably at some point engage in any significant way, I would say that is a committee you should not be a liaison for. So that's my vision of it. It's really just reporting as a court reporter or a news reporter, well, old-time news reporters used to do, where you just tell what happened at the meeting. That's it. That's my vision. I don't know if anybody else shares that vision.
Yeah, I do. I totally share that vision. I think if you're going to liaison for another committee, right, you don't interfere. You just, as you said, you act as a reporter.
Well, I agree with that. However, I would also note that if we're there, that as does happen sometimes, the boards ask questions for us to also come back to this board with, or to go to the town manager with. So it's not just an observing role. It is a little more interactive in the sense that while you're there, I can't think of many meetings I've been at where the board has not asked a question of either this board about process related to town or something directly for the town manager.
So I would say to that, and I don't think that is in conflict with what I described. I think if the group that you're being the liaison for engages you and asks you to bring something back, that's the purpose of the liaison, one of the purposes. That would be good. It's really the other way around that gets more problematic. Not if you ask a question to clarify, because when you report in your committee reports, you want to make sure you get it accurate, that's fine. But if you're going to engage and discuss and debate substantively, that's when I have the issue. If the liaison is the one engaging, except for points of clarity, that's where I have an issue. But if they ask you to bring something back to the board, I think that's perfectly acceptable. That's my vision of what a liaison is. Did that help you, Ms. Adams?
Yeah, I think then, like, I would love to follow along with the school committee and report, and I think I could, do a non-biased job. But there comes a point where, like with some of the reopening, I had public comment. I had questions about how they're going to handle social emotional health. Those are questions as a citizen and a parent, and I don't want to be in conflict with trying to understand whether or not I'm crossing some sort of obligation to not over participate. And so I don't know how, given the importance of some of the things that finance committee, school committee, planning board, that there wouldn't be an opportunity to want to engage on a topic. So I don't think being a liaison under these circumstances is the right role for me.
Okay. Mr. Marino, is there any of these? First of all, is there any other discussion about what we believe the role to be? And I appreciate your honesty, Ms. Adams, and that may be suited fine for you, and that I don't have any objection to that.
Yeah, I think it's part of the reason then that the role went away. It's very complicated. Everybody engaged in government, we can't even predict what we may need to participate in. And I think putting any hurdles between somebody's, need to, use their, their right to their voice and things, restricting it, but you're in a role of communicating is very confusing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it's just, I can't conceptualize the situation in which to be really engaged and be a reporter and also sacrifice the ability to, participate without judgment.
Understood. So of the other members here, we have, so somebody's going to have two if Ms. Adams is not going, because of what she just said. So somebody will have two. I'll open it up to Jim, to Mr. Marino and Mr. Dwyer. Would you like to cover FinCom, school committee, planning, or library? Any of those three, any of those four appeal to you?
FinCom would appeal to me.
Okay.
Do we still have a liaison with the capital planning committee?
No, because we have a member on it.
I have a member, right? Okay.
So does anybody object to Jim? We don't need motions on this. This is just informal. So does anybody object to Jim being on the liaison for the FinCom?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Todd, planning board, school committee, library.
School or planning, doesn't matter to me. Either one's fine.
All right, planning. And then we're going to leave you with the library. And I guess I am going to be relegated to the school committee. Does anybody object to any of those? So we have Mr. Jeffries will maintain his two, library and council on aging. Mr. Dwyer will do planning. Mr. Marino will do the FinCom, and I will do school committee. And then if anything comes up, if we see that, hey, we're missing an important body that we didn't think of here, that's fine. We can always come back and say, hey, we should add this, and we can discuss it at that point. Okay. Moving on, town manager report and COVID-19 update. Madam Town Manager, take it away.
Okay, I will start with my regular report. So announcement of existing vacancies. There's vacancy on the Americans with Disabilities Act Commission, one vacancy in the three vacancies on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, one vacancy on the Capital Planning Committee, three vacancies on the Historical Commission, one vacancy in the Library Board of Trustees, one vacancy on the Senior Center Property Tax Work-Off Committee, and two associate vacancies on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Interested persons can find an application form on the town website complete them and return them to the Board of Selectmen's office. We received a request to rename a tributary off of Mulpus Brook. The U.S. Board of Geographic Names has received a proposal from a resident of Lunenburg to apply the new name of Balish Brook to an officially unnamed stream that flows into the Mulpus Brook in the Cowdrey Nature Center. The Board of Geographic Names is responsible by law for standardizing geographic names for use by the federal government and accepts proposals to name unnamed geographic features or change the names of already named geographic features. Because the Board of Geographic Names places importance on local opinion when it votes on these proposals, local governments who are elected to represent its citizens who might have an interest in the naming are asked for their input. This request was received by both the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission. The stream currently has no name that is official for federal use. The proponent wishes to honor his great uncle, Harry Balish, who lived from 1915 to 1980, who was born in Pennsylvania and died in Oregon. Mr. Balish has no connection to Lunenburg or Massachusetts. He had a long military career serving in World War II and the Korean War and was stationed in New Mexico, San Francisco, Germany, and Turkey. The proponent acknowledged that Mr. Balish had no connection to the area, but believes that he should be commemorated for his military service. The Conservation Commission will be meeting tomorrow evening and we'll be discussing this. And this will be placed on the September 1st Selectmen's agenda for a vote. The fall 2020 elections, the Town Clerk's Office has posted a comprehensive voter options guide for the fall 2020 elections on the town website with everything voters need to know, including their voting options, deadlines for registering to vote, and deadlines for mailed ballots. This can be found by going to the town clerk's page and clicking on the link at the bottom titled Fall Voter Information 2020. Early voting for the September 1st state primary will begin on Saturday, August 22nd and run through Thursday, August 27th. Early voting on the weekends will be at the town hall and will be at the parish hall at 39 Main Street during the week. Request to purchase town-owned land at 671 West Street. An abutter to the town-owned land at 671 West Street has inquired about purchasing a 100 by 150 foot parcel to extend their current lot. This parcel was acquired by the town in 1957 for the erection of a school. In October of 2002, the town voted to rescind the 1957 vote, designating the land to be taken for school purposes and transferred it to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes, and authorized the Board of Selectmen to sell all or portions to various abutting landowners. Our records indicate that 5 portions of that property were sold in 2010. I also notified Conservation and Open Space when I received this inquiry, and if either committee had interest in this parcel, and the Open Space Committee will be having a meeting this Thursday with this topic on their agenda. The Conservation Commission has expressed an interest in this parcel, as well as 5 other town-owned parcels under the care of the Board of Selectmen that they may be requesting be transferred for conservation purposes. The November special town meeting. At the September 1st Selectmen's meeting, the board will vote on setting a date for the fall special town meeting and the opening and closing of the warrant. In order to plan well in advance, I would ask the board to also discuss the safety precautions that will be in place for the November special town meeting at the September 1st meeting so that they can be advertised well in advance and included in the special town meeting warrant booklet. An update on DPW. We continue to advertise for 3 equipment operator laborer vacancies and conduct interviews, but to date have had no success in filling these positions, primarily due to the lack of qualified candidates and the low rate of pay. The Highway Division is down 50% right now, and this staffing shortage has put the DPW at a significant disadvantage in completing all the necessary work to maintain our roadways. Not only are we significantly understaffed, but the Highway Division has spent a significant amount of time in the last few months in assisting the Cemetery Division in the Parks Division to maintain those properties. The Luck program kids were a significant help during June and July, but now that 2 of the 3 kids have left and the 3rd is leaving at the end of the month, we will no longer have this supplemental help. As a result, day-to-day operations of the Highway Division have fallen behind, and not having sufficient staff has created a backlog of work. The DPW still continues to receive daily requests for services with the expectation that the requests be addressed in a timely manner. As we actively search to fill the existing vacancies and look into outsourcing functions until we become fully staffed, I ask residents to be patient. Our staff is working hard and the administration is working towards solving this staffing shortage. In other meetings, the Conservation Commission has a meeting tomorrow night on Zoom at 7 p.m. The Open Space Committee has a meeting on Zoom on Thursday, August 20th at 6 p.m. The Library Board of Trustees has a meeting on Zoom at Thursday, August 20th at 6:45 p.m. And the Planning Board has a meeting on Zoom on Monday, August 24th at 6:30 p.m. And Town Council will hold office hours, monthly office hours on August 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Any questions for the town manager on the town manager report? Seeing none. COVID-19 update.
Okay. We received our weekly update from the Board of Health, and as of August 14th, there are 75 confirmed positive cases in Lunenburg and 1 death. Town facilities, excluding the library and Eagle House, are currently open to the public from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. and by appointment outside of those hours. As a reminder, those entering are required to wear a face mask, use the hand sanitizer in the entryway of the building, and exit through the rear of the building. Schools, at the August 5th school committee meeting, the school superintendent recommended and the school committee voted to proceed with a hybrid model to begin the school year. The first day of school for students in grades 1 through 12 will be Wednesday, September 16th. Updates from the state and federal government. As of August 13th, there are 113,517 cases in Massachusetts, 8,568 deaths, and to date, 1,381,178 people have been tested. We are currently in step 1 of phase 3, and due to the recent increase in positive cases, we will not be moving to step 2 will be postponed indefinitely. And there was an updated gatherings order issued by the governor on Tuesday that took effect on Tuesday, August 11th, which reduces the limit on outdoor gatherings from 100 to 50 people. Indoor gatherings remain at 25 people, limited to 25. This applies to all types of gatherings, both on public and private property. And it requires face coverings where more than 10 people from different households will be mixing as well. Updated restaurant guidelines. Restaurant rules have been updated to state that alcoholic beverages may only be served by on-site consumption if accompanied by orders for food prepared on site. The administration will be taking measures to ensure that bars masquerading as restaurants will be closed. Public safety officials, including state local law enforcement, have the jurisdiction to enforce these orders, and event hosts that are in violation of these orders will be subject to fines or cease and desist orders. Travel order was issued effective August 1st, 2020, that requires visitors and returning residents to Massachusetts to follow these guidelines who are coming from higher risk states. They must complete a travel form and either have to quarantine for 14 days or produce a negative COVID-19 test that has been administered up to 72 hours prior to their arrival to Massachusetts. And their failure to comply may result in a $500 fine per day. The Baker-Polito administration released enhanced community level data on their website. And so this data shows by town their risk level and it averages, it's based all on averages of per 100,000 residents. So that data shows by category of higher risk, moderate risk, or lower risk community. And this information will be updated and included on the Department of Public Health's weekly public health dashboard, which is published every Wednesday. And any city or town that's designated higher risk is considered to have a high level of COVID infection, and they will receive additional support from the state to address the spread of the virus in their community. As part of the Stop the Spread initiative launched by the Baker-Polito administration, there are 17 free testing sites in higher risk communities. All residents in these 17 communities, including asymptomatic residents, are urged to get tested. And these free testing sites are also open to all Massachusetts residents. And the list of this, the free testing sites can be found at mass.gov/info-details/stop-the-spread. And that's all I have for tonight.
You're muted, Tom.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions about this COVID report from the town manager? Okay, thank you. Yes. Hold on, Ms. Adams, I'm unmuting you.
Sure, Heather. I've asked this question before, and just with the rules changing and everything, because somebody had asked a question to me, what is the enforcement of these things? So it's, at the time, the answer was the Board of Health was to enforce it. Because it just, some of it feels like the at-home mask, 10 people, there's an invasiveness. Like, I think of things like search warrants, like, are they no longer required? Like, you know, I have a big family, so I roam around in a clump to begin with. And so as all these things are rolled out, what's enforceable?
So initially each order included the enforcement party, and it mostly came down to the Board of Health to follow up on complaints. So whether it be a complaint of a business that is their employees aren't using face masks or that sort. But those two revised orders that I read off, I believe they've now authorized public safety officials where they didn't have that authority given to them in the orders prior to that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. And they now would have jurisdiction to enforce these orders and any violations.
So does that give our police officers the right to go check on a crowd on private property?
No, they still have to stay within the confines of the Constitution to do so, but they have the right to basically write a ticket, is what it is. And it's only based on complaint. It's not like they go looking for it. Somebody complains about it, they'll go check it out. But the same way they check out any other complaint.
Okay.
So they're not going to show up at your door with a bear cat.
He's still saying we. I like that.
They are. Actually, I said they are not.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said
maybe I am getting used to it.
No, it's just very confusing. And I was asked a legitimate question about, you know, somebody had something they wanted to seek input on. Who do they go to? You know, so I can see both sides of it. People may want to seek help because they have a concern. And then other people may be concerned that civil liberties are, you know, it's very confusing when we read these orders, because my mind goes to, okay, what's the enforcement authority? What are the fines? And I can see a lot of this stuff hasn't gone through the process of any kind of like debate. They're just orders. And I think there's a lot of things here that are getting a little bit confusing.
Well, yeah, they still encourage, and the police have been very good about this right from the get-go. They encourage the police to just talk to people, educate, not action. So.
Yeah, I would add on to that, all the weekly briefings that I've attended with state officials, their first recommendation is working with people, working with the businesses to get them into compliance versus, going strictly right to an, issuing a citation or.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things like a bar masquerading as a restaurant. How do you define that? Can a restaurant be masquerading as a bar? Like, I feel like these things, like my mind likes things to be concrete, and some of this feels so abstract. If we are confronted with, somebody turning in a bar that is masqueraded as a restaurant, how do we even go about, I hear these things and my mind just wants to concretely understand how that actually would be implemented. Somebody complains there's a bar that's masqueraded as a restaurant, and then does it come to us, or who does it go to? And
I think would go to the board.
It sounds a little bit facetious, but it really is. My mind is really like, what happens when somebody raises a concern? Where does it go? How do we manage it?
Right now, I don't think in Lunenburg we have any that would apply, because so that we first would look at, do they have a food retail license and a liquor license? So right now, none that are currently open don't have any applicable.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so we do not have a meeting next week. We do have our next meeting September 1st. And I would ask if there's any public comment from the public. Seeing none. Any public comment from the board?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, if I come across grumpy tonight, it's frustrating. I often feel like there's I don't know how to say it, but just a natural force of disagreement that seems to be amongst us. I feel like our previous board towards our last 6 months would seem to be getting a little bit more, conversational and thought-provoking. And, I get frustrated about things like ADA because I see, certain things. And so, I feel like definitely tonight I felt extremely frustrated, but I put a lot of thought and time into this, just like everybody else. And there just seems to be an overwhelming amount of negativity, and it's exhausting. So my apologies if I seemed grumpy at all tonight.
Any other public comment from the board? Okay, we have an executive session. So before we adjourn, Madam Town Manager, do I have to read this entire thing, including the docket numbers?
I would.
All right, here we go. Take a breath. You may want to get a drink nearby, people. Motion to enter into executive session and to adjourn after exiting the executive session. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's litigating position and the chair so declares it. Namely, we'll be going over these cases: Aldrich et al. Versus the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Lunenburg et al. Worcester Superior Court docket number 1985CV00647. Lunenburg Board of Health versus Goniner et al. Central Housing Court docket number 04H85CV0000229. Massey versus Town of Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals, Worcester Superior Court Civil Action number 1985CV01033. Town of Lunenburg versus Oliva, Central Housing Court docket number 16H85CV00812. National Prescription Opiate Litigation Case number 1:17-MD-2804, and the approval of executive session minutes related to these cases. So I would entertain a motion that we go into executive session for this purpose, not to return to open session.
I move that we go into executive session for those purposes stated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Aye.
And an aye for me. Good night, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Aye.